Hey everyone, what's up? Kevin from Pastrami Nation here. So this interview you guys are about to listen to, I got to speak with Ethan Sachs and Brian DeCubellis. They wrote so Brian's a filmmaker. Along with his partner K.S. Bruce, who created this new comic called Dark Honor. Ethan Sachs is the writer of Dark Honor. He adapted it from the screenplay that they had written. To originally turn it into a feature film, but the timing just didn't feel right. And when you listen to the interview, you'll understand why. The book does take place during COVID. It's very COVID inspired. It's a COVID inspired piece of work. It's an action piece. It's really good, first of all. So I did get a chance to read the first issue. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was really gritty, really noir. But you'll hear about all that in the interview. These guys were amazing. They were incredible. They were really, really fun to talk to, and they were willing to answer any questions. And we got down into the interviews. Not very long. It's about 20 minutes or so, but we got to some nitty gritty stuff. We got to talk about some really cool things, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. This was a really, really good time. These guys are awesome, and the book, the comic, the first issue. It's a 5 issue series. It drops on May 28th, but you can pre-order it now through Image Comics. It's just a really, really good time, good book. Highly, highly recommend it. So stay tuned, listen to the interview, and as usual, let us know what you guys think. We love doing these interviews, and like, share, all that stuff really, really helps us out a lot. So, yeah. So without further ado, here is my interview with Brian DeCubellis and Ethan Sachs.
Yeah, thanks for having us. You're
No,
our
yeah, I'm
first
very.
interview.
Oh,
You're our
really?
very first interview. Yeah, for
Oh,
this.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, awesome. I'm excited. I'm honored to be the first. And this book is amazing. I got to read the first issue. It's going to be a 5 part series. So, Brian, I want to start with you. So, you've talked about the concept for this book, and it goes back all the way to 2020 during COVID times. And that's really when the book takes place. Can you tell me about that evolution of the project and how it kind of came about?
Yeah, it's kind of a strange tale to get here to the comic book, but basically, K.S. Bruce, who's the co-creator on Dark Honor with me, who co-wrote the screenplay of a movie Trust that we made
Cool.
and I directed, was wrapping right before COVID hit, like literally right before.
Ooh,
And so when I took the train home that Friday the 13th morning after the shoot, it was like a ghost town from Grand Central Station in New York
right.
on the train because just like nobody was there. And then the whole city shut down that weekend. And that initial feeling of what, the mystery and the terror of what this thing was just kind of an interesting moment in time that we wanted to capture in our next project as a screenplay. And we had no idea at that time that the pandemic would last as long as it would. We thought it was like a few
Yeah,
months. We're all like, this thing could last 3 months.
I remember
And
those days.
when we started writing, and then so we wrote it as a screenplay first to be a film, and it took about a year, and when we finished it, the pandemic was still in full effect, and it just
Yeah.
did not seem like the time to try and go out and make a movie with this, out of respect to everyone who was suffering, from COVID and all the loss. And also nobody wanted to watch that movie at that time. So
Yeah.
we totally put the thing on the shelf. We said, okay, great writing exercise, let's just shelf that. But then some years went by, and the conversation got rekindled. And incidentally, KS and I both know Ethan from the first film that we did called Manhattan Night.
Okay.
And Ethan was at the Daily News at that time, and it was just serendipity that we had met. Ethan did a whole story about Adrian Brody in the movie and the movie, and we stayed in touch, and uh somehow the idea of a comic book, we were talking about comic books, and we're like, we should talk to Ethan because he knows everything about comic books.
Yeah.
So, I rang you up, Ethan, and I said, we were catching up, and Ethan said, I'd love to see that screenplay. And we said, if you think this is something that could be a comic book, would you help us to do it? Because we're newbies and we don't know what to do. And Ethan, you could take the story over from there, perhaps.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so I mean, as Brian said, I knew them from I want to say 2016 or so that
That's correct. Very good.
Manhattan
Very
Night
good.
came out, and usually when you're a writer, you're giving an elevator pitch, but they gave me the elevator pitch for
Yeah.
what this story was, and I was hooked from that elevator pitch. So yeah, basically on the side, I had done some COVID reporting for NBC News right at the beginning of the pandemic. So to mer and I in the world of comics, I did a nonfiction series for AWA called COVID Chronicles. So the idea of setting this crime story in New York City in that very early period of COVID, it just kind of was a hook in the back of my brain. And this the story was pretty much fully formed and very good as it was. I think my contribution was largely to sort of change it maybe more from a movie type story to more of a sequential, more of a almost like a mini series. But
Right.
really the story, like Brian and KS had already had a great story. Yeah, so like my role in the band was that, and also maybe comic book consigliere, I like to say.
Yeah, you're underselling yourself a little. Ethan was key. He was the linchpin in the whole project. His creative vision for what this could be as a comic was a guiding light. Everything from how many panels should be on this page to this would be a great splash to what if we do it this way instead of how you guys did it. Like all the way through, Ethan, we couldn't have done this without you. Your creative contribution was immense.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah. Very cool. So yeah, so you have the story set during COVID, this crime, very noir, kind of, aesthetically while I was looking through it, it kind of reminded me of like, I've never been to New York. I've never, experienced New York, unfortunately, but I grew up on a lot of like, not movies set in New York. And like, specifically, I always think about the very first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie that came out in 1989 had that really gritty, dark noir feel to it. And that's what this reminded me of. It had that really gritty tone and everything to it. And I really, really love that about it. Um, can you guys tell us a little bit about the story? Like the story is captivating. I know you've kind of talked about the little story a little bit, but let's talk about the main, protagonist, Rain, who's this really badass, female. She's just amazing. Can you tell us about the story itself and how it kind of evolves a little bit?
Sure. Interesting that you picked up on the noir of it all. That was kind of key to
Yeah.
us when we were writing the screenplay. We really wanted to write a noir, and my kind of early comic book love, really, Batman was the one that really lit it up for me as a
Oh
kid.
yeah.
Just the TV show and reruns, the Adam West, and Adam West came to our town, Providence, Rhode Island, with a car show in the Batmobile, when I
That's
was like six
cool.
years old, and I got to shake his hand, and that was the best day of my childhood life for a very long
That's so
time,
cool.
you know. And then when a friend introduced me to the Dark Knight, to the Frank Miller Dark Knight, I was like, I didn't know a comic book could be this. I didn't, that just kind of shook my whole, perception of what comic books were. And just that Gotham, is just so New York City noir that
Mm.
that that really kind of planted, I think, my love of noir way back then when I was in high school. So to answer your question, to get to the story, we kind of started from a noir place. We started from a noir perspective when we were writing, and we were looking at some European noirs from the 60s, and we were looking at different kind of noirs, and we started to sort of pull the elements together And when the idea kind of took hold that the villain Grigor
Yeah.
could be the representation of COVID coming to take over the city, because he, as the villain, is coming to exploit the chaos of New York in those early days of COVID. The idea of him being COVID himself as a metaphor was just a super exciting idea to us. And so we kind of, created our hero character, Rain, um, you know, in contrast, and we started to create a whole mythology. So there's a mythology. It's very fictitious, and it's of this group, the Hundred. They are a secret warrior council that protects all of the families of the underworld and has been for decades since the Second World War. And
Mhm.
Rain is the adopted daughter of the leader Joseph. The leader of the Hundred, Joseph, adopted Rain when she was very young and raised her as a daughter. So she kind of came up Kung Fu Panda style, learning all of the martial arts and learning all the ways of a fighter and a gang member. And when the story starts, she's actually in prison because of an incident that happened while gambling in an illegal gambling den. And so she actually gets sprung from prison because of COVID. If you recall, at the time, prisons were
Yep.
starting to release, uh, you know, lower threat inmates who are close to
Yep.
finishing their time. So that was kind of the entry point. Now we've got a hero coming out of prison into the first days of COVID, and the worst villain in the world has started taking over, and her father and what's remaining of their gang, which is not much by this point, is responsible for protecting all of New York City, and she's the heir apparent, although she's been kind of shunned all this time. So that's kind of how it all came together. That's the basic story.
Cool. Ethan, while you're like writing this, you're basically, you have the story, you're ready to go,
Mhm.
you're kind of doing your part, you're developing it and cutting it into, panels and stuff like that. Um, how much, you said you were out there reporting and stuff like that on COVID and stuff. How much of what you saw did you kind of insert? I mean, I'm sure you guys experienced kind of a lot of the same things, but when you're doing reporting and stuff, it's a little bit more in depth. How much of what you saw while you were out there did you place into the story itself while you're reading it? I mean, were all the pieces already there? Were you like, this would be kind of an interesting little thing? Like I found the thing with the mask, pretty, hardcore, right? Because like, everyone was talking about their masks and stuff. But was there anything that you injected into the story that you thought might have been a little bit more added to it, or maybe taken things away?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was almost entirely already in the page of in the
Okay.
script. They really spent a lot of time. There might have been one or two small little details, but I can't even, to be honest, I can't even remember any of. So like,
Right,
it was
right. That's what I
really
figured.
Brian and KS really had done that work already.
Okay.
But a lot of it was very legitimate. Like just in the first issue, the Grand Central being empty, the sound of the footsteps. There really was because living in New York City, there were a lot of times where I'd be walking out on the street, in late March 2020, and there'd be no one there, no cars, no nothing. It really felt like I Am Legend, the Will
Right.
Smith, not the original
Yeah.
the book on which it's based, but having that sort of feel to it, or like 28 Days Later, it has that creepy, um, isolation feeling. So there was a lot of that already baked into the story.
Cool. Um, Brian, you mentioned you come from the world of film. You're a filmmaker, screenwriter, stuff like that. I'm curious, how much of that are you? So obviously, when you're writing a comic, totally different genre, totally different medium, things like that. And there's a lot of moving pieces though that goes into both, obviously filmmaking and writing comics and publishing and stuff like that. Um, was it? How did you approach both? So obviously, you're overseeing this whole project. Was it was it difficult to kind of get into the mindset of like this is what we're doing? It's still a visual medium, but a totally different kind of visual medium. How did you kind of balance the two a little bit?
It was super interesting for me, a total education, total learning curve. So the part that was super familiar was, as a director, I'm always storyboarding the shots. So thinking in
Right.
terms of shots, and since we had written the screenplay, while writing the screenplay, I was already thinking in shots when, in the early days, thinking it might be something I would direct. So translating the cinematography to the page was pretty natural because I had a very sort of
Okay.
clear idea of like when we want to be in a wide, when we want to be in a close up, etc.
Right.
Um, the part that was a great joy and surprise was just, how much the artists brought to it. You know what I mean? So their vision of what it was just based off the script. Because while I had those ideas in my head, I wasn't overly prescriptive in terms of panel by panel exactly. I mean, we gave details, and
Right.
Ethan was great at finding references a lot of times to go in the script, photo references and things. And if something was super important, we would say, okay, we want, the framing has to be close on this so we get, what we're looking at as an important thing, whatever. But by and large, the artists really brought it to life in a way that was just amazingly fun.
Yeah.
That was just super fun. And then the process, in terms of how it works, that took some getting used to as well, because in the film world and in the TV world, which I also work in,
Right.
it's a whole different kind of deadline oriented schedule where, you're just kind of like in lockstep to hit dates and you have to hit them, and that there's no uh, excuse if you don't hit them. I had to adapt to the more loose, uh, free-flowing process of, the pencils and the inks and the color and the lettering, because people are on different timetables. And when you
Yeah.
start, you don't have an actual deadline. You're just trying to get them complete to the point where you feel comfortable to solicit the first issue to start the train rolling. And so it's just a very different kind of rhythm, a very different kind of um, deadline sense. But that said, once I adapted, like, okay, it's like this. It was just like Christmas morning every time, pages would come in from the artists or the colorists or you just open them and it was just like, wow, this is amazing.
Right. No, absolutely. And Ethan, I mean, you're also, you were a journalist. You do all that, and you're doing the comic books and everything like that. Which one? I mean, I can imagine being a journalist. You're like constantly kind of working on these deadlines and stuff, much like filmmaking, right? Compared to like comic book writing. Um, is this the same question for you, kind of thing, or do you take one from the other that you use with the other, or vice versa, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, from the, I started in comics after about 20 years in journalism, and I started, I
Mm.
want to say 2000, late 2017, 2018, January was when Old
Okay.
Man Hawkeye came out.
Ah, love
But
that
what
book.
translates for me is I'm actually very good with deadlines. So
Right. Like,
it's something I really attack and because so comics is for those of you out there who don't know the behind the scenes process, essentially it's an assembly line, right? And the writer is on one end, is on the far left of the assembly line. And then you sort of write the outline, then eventually the script. It goes to the artist. They do layouts,
mm,
eventually do pencils and inks, and eventually coloring, lettering, and all along the process, it's a creator owned. So obviously the creators have input all along the way, as well as the editor. In our case, the great Chris Ryle, who's Syzygy is the imprint under Image, which produces comic. So if the
very cool.
writer is the part where it slows down, then everything breaks down.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very hyper attuned, and I was a not just a journalist, I was a tabloid journalist for the New York Daily News, and so our deadlines were multiple deadlines a day. I didn't often get the chance to work on one article for months and months and months. So it was, the deadline pressure does
Wow.
translate. And I think also, just in general, working at a tabloid, it's most important to have leads. Leads are
Yeah,
how you begin an article. And so, very much getting to the point, brevity, um, hooking readers. I think all that translates. So when I'm writing, I'm very, on the first issue, you want to have, a scene that really hooks readers. All that sort of, it's not a direct one-to-one translation, but to me, there is a connection.
absolutely, 100%. Well, thank you guys so much for stopping by to chat. Really, really enjoyed it. So Dark Honor.
Sorry, can I just interject one thing real quick? I just
Yeah.
want to give a shout out because I think one of the great things about this book is I like to say it has a murderer's row of artists.
Oh my
And
gosh, yes.
yes,
The
so
artwork's
the first
incredible.
issue is Fico Ossio, who I got to work with a few times, including on a graphic novel that hasn't come out yet for whatever reason.
Okay.
But he's just amazing. And then we have like Dave Messina, Gabriel Guzman, and Jamal Agil. And I think
It's
as an independent comic to get all of those people, like the benefit for us was we could fit within their schedules on the many
gosh.
Marvel and DC work that they do.
Yeah.
But it's like an embarrassment of riches. The art alone is really gonna blow people's minds. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's stunning. Like I said, I've been able to read the first issue, and it's incredible, and it really transports you to that day and time, to that time period, but also in this really, like I said earlier, this really dark noirish kind of version of New York, which I really, really appreciated. So you're there with the characters, and I really cannot wait to see where the story goes. I think readers are going to absolutely love it. Just Brian, real quick, is there any like, are you ever like itching to kind of maybe do a little bit more comic book work after this? Or
100%, a hundred
awesome,
percent. I can't wait to do another one.
cool. Well,
Yeah, it's just so fun. It's just such a great expression, and I hope to have the opportunity to do it again.
yeah, it's such a great medium and such a cool way to tell a story. My daughter's really getting into comics now. She's getting into like graphic novels and stuff. She actually also read A Haunted Girl also, and she absolutely loved it. So it's just like, it's this whole other world that's just available. It's a really cool medium, and I'm happy to see filmmakers kind of jumping into that medium because I think there's so many possibilities there as well.
And I
Um,
just wanted to, if I could throw one more thing in,
Please.
part in terms of the shout out to the artists. You know, another thing that makes the Murderers Row so cool is that, it's a first series where you don't usually have different artists necessarily interpreting these
Right.
characters. So for this to have the Dave Messina version of Rain and Grigger and
Oh,
Joseph,
that's
and then, and Jamal's and so on and so forth, it's just a fun I think added benefit to see their takes. It's still within the same world, and we kept a consistency, but their issues are theirs. Fico's
so cool.
issues feel like him, and the others the same. So I just think that's a fun reason to, keep
Yeah.
keep tuning in each
Yeah.
issue.
Absolutely, absolutely. I look forward to it. Seeing all the different art styles and stuff is going to be really, really incredible. So Dark Honor #1, it hits shelves on May 28th. It is available for pre-order now. I believe you could get it from the image site that has all the links and everything on there. We'll also post some links as well where people can pre-order it, buy the book, all that fun stuff. Um, Gentlemen, it was a lot of fun. Thank you really so much. Really, really appreciate you guys stopping by to talk about Dark Honor. Again, y'all need to check it out. Highly, highly recommend it. And it's a wonderful book. So, well, thank you guys again. You guys have a good day. And I look forward to all of your continued success and seeing where this goes in the future.
Thanks
Yeah.
so much,
Thanks
Absolutely,
Kevin.
again,
guys.
Kevin.
Thank
Really
you. Of
Appreciate it.
appreciate
course.
it.
Of course. Thanks a lot, guys. All right, and we are back. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for for checking out the interview. It really, really means a lot. Like I said, these guys were a lot of fun, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Hopefully we do a lot more of these in the future. I'm very, very excited to start to talk to more writers, creators, things like that. So thank you all for listening, and yeah, make sure to go pre-order the book. It's like I said, it's really, really good. Highly, highly recommend it. It's called Dark Honor. Y'all won't want to miss it. And like they said in the interview, each book, there's 5 issues, and each book is drawn by a different artist, which is really, really cool. It gives their interpretation of it. I look forward to seeing all that as it releases. So, all right. Well, thank you guys so much, and make sure to stay tuned to Pastrami Nation for a review of Dark Honor, as well as all the other fun stuff. And I hope you guys, I don't know if this is going to come out before then or after then. If it comes out after, hopefully you guys enjoyed the coverage of C2E2. I'm going to Chicago, so that'll be a lot of fun. So if you're listening to this after C2E2 takes place, go check out Pastrami Nation for all the coverage and everything of C2E2 in Chicago. All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much, and we will talk to y'all. We will see y'all next time. Alrighty. Bye-bye.